have a book and they want to market it. And they want to have people that follow them. And they just want to have a fan base, a personal fan base. They want to be popular as public figures. I would just have access to all of their social media accounts, and I would have my own team that is already having access to multiple followers, maybe like that, and we would have this application as a buffer that would just keep updating their status, uploading high-quality profile pictures and videos. So when you're tracking somebody and like looking at his profile on the internet and any kind of social media, it does not necessarily mean that you are just seeing his own social, media, like political views, thoughts. It's my own, like personal. As for me personally, right now I'm handling up to like 50 accounts of people. And most of those people, they don't upload their own views. It's just mine or my people. They tend to upload whatever is trending and whatever is viral right now, so that there will be so many shares and so that it will go viral. And people would start following this person. This would help him on the long run when he publishes his own book. A lot of people would idolize him and, oh, this guy is a good writer. And when he doesn't actually know how to write a few words. Oh, this guy is a good writer. He keeps updating these beautiful statuses. Okay, I'm going to buy his book. This is what happens. So I think when you're tracking somebody to just gather information about those people, you don't have the accurate information about these people.
Maybe we can take. Okay, let's take 7. I'm quite interested in the idea of, you mentioned surveillance, and you mentioned how there are too many actors that the panopticon is not really what matters at the moment. But I'm interested if you have any thoughts on the example of Egypt, and if I also touch on the idea of Snapchat that you talked about, people moving out of platforms where their parents are on, it's not as liberating, not as fun. But you can see that one form of state control is social polarization, and the kind of conformity and self-censorship that comes along with it can stop people from sharing political or social views in such environments as Egypt at the moment, not because they fear that they're going to be persecuted by the state, but they fear the social reaction. On top of that, you can see the example of people in Egypt being reported for liking something on Facebook. And then, because of the legal framework in Egypt, they are persecuted for insulting religion, insulting the president, insulting this or that institution. So I was interested if you have any thoughts about the state using the social sphere as another tool, exactly as the panopticon is used, but you don't feel, you're not fearing the surveillance of the state as much as the social sphere being another arm of the state in a way or another. All right, Ganesh, do you want to?
So absolutely. So to kind of clump those first two questions together, what really changes with technology is both in terms of surveillance, both persistence and scale. Right? Data lasts for much longer if you wanted to, and the scale at which you're able to make it last is much larger than a pre-database society. So databases are what have really changed things. Now, one further example, there was a fashion blog based in Williamsburg in New York City, Williamsburg, right? It's like very hipster kind of part of Brooklyn. And so someone just set up their webcam instead of pointing towards them from their computer, turned it around to the window. So from within their house, and they set up a motion sensor. As people are passing by, there's a photo clicked. Now, if people are just clicking photos on the street, there isn't an issue, right? It's a public space. We normally don't have many problems with that. Except if a photo is clicked, and then all of it is around one spot, and all of it gets automatically posted to a blog, so that every day, like, someone knows not just what you're wearing, which is what the intention of these people are, but also what your routines are, what time you get out of bed, what time you're rushing to work, and all these kinds of things, whether you were actually there when you told your boss you were somewhere else. These kinds of things start changing, and people start reacting to it. So once, 3 days after the blog was launched, you started seeing people, looking at the camera, making faces at the camera, and not just faces, like their hand gestures at the camera as well. Okay, so people started, subverting it to an extent, resisting it to an extent, but in an interesting way, not by telling people to take it off, but by interacting with it. So all of this, I think, just goes to show that it's a very difficult problem, that there is no easy solution, because the powers of surveillance that exist with the government, that exist with the state, now exist with common people. So you might have heard of the NSA ANTS toolkit, like this catalog, ANT catalog, which which was published, in which we got to find out about lots of things that the NSA is doing to put people to use for surveillance. Now people have already started to create a free and open source version of the entire catalog. They're creating, and both in terms of software as well as in terms of hardware, they're actually creating something free and open source. So it is replicable. We have the powers of the NSA. The question is, how do we actually use it? Now, the answer to a lot of this in the long run is not about law, it's not about technology. It's about society. It's about how we choose to regulate ourselves as a society, to exactly the questions of ethics and where we set ethical boundaries around this is what's going to matter. And ethics, of course, is fluid, it's not static, and that becomes wrong. I'll very quickly touch upon the other questions as well. One, what the gentleman there mentioned, well, there is a service called Google Sharing, right, which is precisely designed to do that. That is, of course, there's surveillance happening, but what if, when I search the next time around, I'm not logged into my own account, but I get the results as they would appear to someone else, okay, sitting in some other part of the world. Okay, now, so that kind of Google sharing, okay, is possible. So one part of the danger of profiling is that your digital doppelganger, okay, your data equivalent becomes the real you rather than you. You have much more flexibility than your data equivalent. But what if there is no clear pattern in your data digital equivalent? What if you're very random, so random that you can't make predictions, so random that you could be anyone, right? Perhaps that's one way of resisting as well. Perhaps that's where we need to be heading, to more common shared identities, to not leaving a digital footprint of yourself. Except everyone wants individuality. Everyone wants to stand out on social media. So that's what's going to affect them, right? And lastly, I'm forgetting what the last question was. So
I'm aware of the time. So let me just pick one question to answer the question Jazz asked about levels. I think it makes sense to think about levels within different contexts. Within certain contexts, I think people are quite hesitant to provide racial information. But in other contexts, there really isn't a limit. If you're dealing with, say, mobile health in that kind of context, you really need to be have full disclosure and be completely honest about whatever it is you're dealing with. Some of those contexts will depend on user and situation. If Pranav and I are organizing a dinner party, and we may decide that we do this via Google, and Google will say, well, listen, guys, based on the list of people you provided, I can tell you 4 of them are vegetarian, and you need to order more cucumbers because you haven't got enough in the fridge, based on all the RFID tags that you have attached to your produce in the fridge. Maybe we decide in that context that we don't want to have limits either because we really want to put in a good party and we're terribly disorganized and we need help. But a lot of it really depends on the user and what they're trying to do. So a lot of it is unresolved. And we'll be worrying about this very question, such an important question, for so long.
Steph, quick comment.
So I'll just jump right to your question. It's a really good question. Actually, I have two more examples about how surveillance isn't just, from how, the surveillance or surveillance being diversified and just like working not just from the state to the citizens, but also citizens amongst each other and how this works. So that was actually going to be one of my examples because, so I was going to start talking about CCTV in London in the underground. Is very, very comprehensive. But the problem was that there was actually too much footage for the state to actually do all of this by themselves. So they made it available online, which made it possible for everybody to go online and help the state identify, undecided behavior, crime, terrorist threats, all of that. And what tells us this, it's still, this example shows how it's still the technology and it still enables citizens to watch and and participate in that, but it doesn't take away any of the political or social problems that are in the society. There's still going to be racism if somebody looks at a person and say, oh, this is a racist or this is a terrorist. So just because people, the ability to watch is moved from just from the state to everybody else, it doesn't help with the social problems. And also, moving to Egypt here, I was going to bring up an example of the TV adverts that were put up of if you see a foreigner talking about asking questions, it might be a spy, and just watch other people and so surveillance or this control, it moves everywhere, and I think that's the main theoretical point between the moving from the panopticon to something else. But I think I'm going to stop. We can continue the conversation after that.
So audience, Stephanie, Colin, Pranesh, and those who are surveying us, thank you so much.